everybody. This is a quick update on the status of National Guard in Washington, D.C. So, the appellate court for the District of Columbia, which is the appeals court for that, for, for the circuit that is the District of Columbia, ruled that stayed the lower court's order that stopped the deployment of National Guard troops. And it did it because the District of Columbia is a federal district created by Congress rather than a constitutionally sovereign entity like the 50 states. The defendants appear on this early record likely to prevail on the merits of their argument that the president possesses a unique power within the district. It also appears likely that the DC Code independently authorizes the deployment of DC Guard. So the long and short of it is, until this case is adjudicated in the trial stages and then goes up on the merits to the appellate court and then to the Supreme Court, until that happens, this appellate court is saying that we are going to stay the lower court's order that stopped National Guard from being deployed on Washington, D.C. streets. It also says that the court is not ruling on any determination of whether the National Guard was conducting law enforcement activities after being federalized, which is what they're not supposed to be doing because that violates the Posse Comitatus Act. So the court did not address that issue. The issue here, the only thing the court looked at is whether the government is likely to succeed on the merits on the basis of the entity that is DC, which is not a state. And if nothing else, this is another reason why DC should get statehood. DC has more people than Wyoming and Vermont. DC needs to have its representation in Congress, and DC also needs the power of the sovereign state, without which DC is always going to be at the whims of an executive, of the President of the United States, unlike any other city in the country, and with citizens who don't have representation in Congress. With that said, that's a small update. It's not the best news, but DC already has guard on the streets, so do a half a dozen other cities. There's a case that is before the Supreme Court now, that is the Illinois case about about the deployment of the guard, because the Seventh Circuit ruled by agreeing with the district court. So the Supreme Court has to figure out whether it is to stay the district court's deployment of the National Guard as the district court has done, or whether to allow the guard from being deployed in Illinois while that case is ongoing. The court hasn't done that, which the Supreme Court hasn't done that, which kind of goes to show that the Supreme Court is not leaning towards the argument that the government would win the case. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens with that case when it is argued. I'm not sure when it's going to be argued. It's on the docket. So with that said, thank you for listening. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll come back and talk to you soon.